Hello everyone, welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have with us, he's a director, and he has two movies out. One is called SLAPFACE. It's streaming right now on Shudder. By the way, I had a chance to watch this one. It's a good one. Make sure to shoot over Shudder and watch it. He also has a new one called GEECHEE, which I have with us Jeremiah Kipp. Jeremiah, welcome to the Horror Room.
Travis, thanks for having me on your show. And before we begin, let me just say I really enjoyed the interviews you've done on your channel. You know, I'm fans of some of the people that you've spoken to, like Gregory Blair, who's a wonderful writer, and of course the infamous Charles Lincoln, who did Bishop's Code most recently. But he wrote and produced my second feature, Teresa and Allison, so it was a blast to hear him talk to you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Listen, I'm all about shining a spotlight on indie horror creators because, you know, there should be more of it, man. I mean, there's some good indie horror coming out right now, and unfortunately, it's flying under the radar. But this is my job to shine a spotlight on it, man. Yeah,
it feels like you're a horror fan who's doing it for other horror fans, which I really appreciate.
Die hard, man. Die hard. And pause for a second. Jesus, why is my... All right, so tell us a little bit about SLAPFACE.
Sure. SLAPFACE, it's a feature-length film. It's about a little boy whose parents have died. So he's being raised by his older brother, who's not much more than not much more than a teenager himself. And in this town, there's a local legend called the Virago Witch. And the boy looks into it, hoping to find some kind of a friend or a mother figure, or at least something to believe in. And he goes to the local haunted house. He manifests the Virago Witch. They do form a strange bond and a strange friendship, but mayhem ensues. More trouble is caused and more death and more chaos than boy or creature could have possibly imagined.
And this is a beautifully shot movie. Production-wise, how long did it take?
We shot it in 17 days, but the thing that made it look so good was that the crew were people I've been working with for many, many, many years. Dominic Savilli, the director of photography who shot it so beautifully, I've been working with him since 2009. He shot my first feature, The Sadist, starring horror icon Tom Savini. That was our Killer in the Woods movie. And Dom and I are just, we're best friends. We love working together. We're very close. It was one of those movies where every department had friends of mine in it. It was much more to the spirit of when George Romero got together all of his pals in Pittsburgh. So, the key grip and the gaffer and the swing and the first and second assistant camera, the special effects artists, these are all people that I knew, who I'd had a long working relationship with, who are colleagues. And they showed enormous support for the project. They were really behind it. We also shot in autumn in upstate New York. It was October into November. And that's how we got that beautiful Sleepy Hollow quality to the movie, where you're feeling the autumnal trees on the leaves. It was the October season.
So, because if you watch this movie, you would not know it was a indie horror movie. Like it has that big budget feel to it and look to it.
Yeah, I stole a little of those tricks from John Carpenter. Halloween was a very low budget movie also, but he shot it in widescreen and anamorphic. And that was one of the early decisions that we made, was we wanted it to have that big picture feel. Even though we did not have very much money, it was, the reason we shot for 17 days is we couldn't afford 18, and, every constitutive part of the movie was a challenge to do. It was one of those projects, the way it came about really was we did a short film first, also called SLAPFACE, and it did the festival circuit for 3 years. That was even cheaper. That was well under... that was me cashing in every favor with my friends who just gave of themselves for free, a lot of them. And we did that, the feature-length script was already written, but we couldn't find the money for it. I'd done other work-for-hire movies that were not, written and directed by Jeremiah Kipp. They were work-for-hire jobs that I put my all into them. But this was a personal project. We did the short. we played festivals, and along the way we found producers who believed in the project. And I had no reason to believe that signing an option agreement with them would lead to anything. It was just as likely that we would not make the movie. But 8 months after we signed the agreement, they found the money through a bunch of private investors who believed in the film. And 8 months later, there we were. I'm on the set, day one of principal photography, with the little boy and the monster and the whole 9 yards, and a crew of my friends, which was, was really wonderful. But yeah, like, the reason it feels like a big budget movie is because of everybody put their hearts into it. We did low budget stuff, like all those police cars are in the movie. That's because we called the Fishkill Police Department and asked them to be in our movie. We made friends with a city councilman, so there's an ambulance in the movie. Like, they were just like, oh, can we be in the movie? It's like, and again, I go back to George Romero, who was really a great inspiration in terms of community filmmaking. The reason he gets all those army trucks in Dawn of the Dead is he made friends with the National Guard. The reason he has helicopters is because he shot stuff for the news and got a helicopter for one day. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of just really smart producers working the phones and pounding the pavement and putting ourselves in the community in a way that where they gave back, So, and a lot of the extras in the film are film directors that are part of my community. I just called them up and was like, hey, this is, can you come by and be in the bar scene, or can you come by and, be, an extra in the hospital or something like that, and people really did generously show up, and I think it's, if you have an open heart and care, and put in the hours of what we might call community service, with our friends, helping other filmmakers out on their movies, for instance, then we all give back to each other and we all support each other. I think it's very important in the independent world.
It's definitely important, because in the indie film world, indie filmmakers have to look out for each other, because if not, the big budgets are not going to.
That's right.
But I can imagine, if you're living in a small town, and a movie, whether it be indie, big budget, whatever, is filming in your town, it must be exciting.
Yeah, it was nice, like the people, there was a remarkable lack of cynicism around the people who helped us make the movie. Like, the bar that we filmed in, the bar owner was like, yeah, come, are you going to shoot this side of my bar? I'm really proud of this part of it, that sort of thing. Brian Butler over, was the guy who owned the bar, the Golden Rail Ale House, which is near Fishkill, New York. It's in Newburgh, New York. But yeah, that was a lot of like us having drinks at that bar and and making friends with the owner, who was very kind to us. I think that's the way. It's like when Romero or Carpenter or Tobe Hooper, all the guys that we love, who I grew up with anyway. I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s. Like you saw, once you learned how they were making their movies, you were like, oh, a big part of making the films when you don't have any money is, gathering the resources that you do have. Like when you hear the stories about Romero saying like, all right, we have a car that has a big dent in it, so we'll have it like crash into a tree, and that's how Barbara will not be able to drive away from the zombies. Stuff like that really deeply inspired me, and SLAPFACE is filled with stuff like that, where it was, like it feels bigger budget because we asked people to help us, and they were generous in their support.
And that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Now, one question. So this is streaming on Shudder.
Yeah.
Now, how do you get your film onto Shudder? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of indie filmmakers wondering.
Great question. All right, so Shudder. I mean, well, first of all, I love Shudder and I love their programming. There are so many great movies that are on there. I could talk for our entire time about the movies that I love on their programming. But yeah, when we made the movie, we didn't have any distribution in place or anything. We just like made the film and wanted to get it out into the world. So we did target film festivals that we believed would get us, representation or a sales agent or somebody to open the doors for us, because we didn't know anybody at Shudder. So we premiered at CineQuest which is a great film festival in San Jose, and we won an audience award there, which really made the difference because that's how we acquired our sales agent, Dread. Dread is a subsidiary of Dread Central. We got on their radar because of CineQuest, which again is the film festival thing. That's the entire reason the short film found the producers. That's the reason we found our sales agent, and Dread opened the door to Shudder. The Shudder deal happened at our second film festival, Fright Fest in the United Kingdom. And while we were there, like Shudder was buying features that were at that festival. So, like for example, there's another movie that played the same day that SLAPFACE did there called The Avant-Gardener. They bought that, and both those films played, I think, the same month on Shudder. So I have film festivals to thank for that. You know, CineQuest and Fright Fest were two that were instrumental in the selling of this movie, because we wouldn't have met Dread if we hadn't played at CineQuest, and we wouldn't have gotten the Shudder deal if we didn't have Dread. You know, so one thing led to another, and it was through a process of just making a film that we really believed in, programming it in the festivals that we thought would make a difference, and then being fortunate and kind of lucky, really, you know, to win an audience award, and then get meetings with the kind of people that we wanted to be talking with.
Because I mean, as an indie horror filmmaker, to be able to get your film on Shudder, I mean, it's pretty fucking big.
It is big. I don't take it for granted at all.
Now, so SLAPFACE originally started as a short film.
That's right.
And now it's a fully feature. Now, was that hard to try to adapt a short film into a full feature?
Well, it was originally a feature-length script before it was a short. You know, I'd been trying to get that movie made for a couple of years. And, you know, it was just a weird time. Like, movies like Hereditary hadn't come out yet. So people didn't really know what a domestic story with supernatural elements, you know, looked like. I would send it to producers, and they'd be like, "What does this monster look like? Does it look like Shrek?" And I was like, "There's a full-page description in the script of what the monster looks like," you know. But I even included some concept art. But like, it was really hard to convey the tone of the movie. And I kind of gave up. I mean, I put it in a drawer and proceeded to make work-for-hire features, which I did with great joy. You know, like I said, I did Teresa and Allison with Charles Lincoln. I did Black Wake, starring Tom Sizemore, which is a weird H.P. Lovecraft movie. You can see that on Tubi.
Check it out.
And yeah, and you know, but I didn't really think that SLAPFACE was going to get made. You know, and then fortunately, you know, a lot of, I hate the term elevated horror, but like a lot of those movies came out, Hereditary and The Witch and The Babadook. And fortunately for me, the director of photography, Dominic Savilli, suggested that I do it as a short. It was funny because he said, "I'll give you $5,000. We'll go make a short. Let's, you know, just do a 5-minute, 7-minute version of SLAPFACE." I was like, "Great!" I took the scenes that I loved from the movie and I pushed them into being a short. You know, I don't know if I could have written that short and then expanded it into a feature in the time that we had, or if you know, it was more like truncating it down to a short. And then the funny part was, you know, Dominic said, "Hey, why don't we crowdfund a little bit so I don't have to spend all of my $5,000? I said, "Great." We did. We crowdfunded and we got the money that way. And he said, "Boy, good thing I didn't have $5,000. I just wanted you to make your movie." And I didn't know whether to hug him or smack him in the face, you know. But I owe that guy a lot. I mean, that guy is my brother, and he, you know, I might not have made the short film if he hadn't tricked me into making it in that way. But yeah, it was a feature-length script first, and then the short enabled producers to be able to actually understand what the feature would look like and what the monster would look like, and most importantly, the tone of the film, which was, you know, as much as I absolutely adore schlock horror movies, you know, I'm a big Trauma fan, you know, and I love slashers. I love all the different subgenres, but this one, you know, definitely fell into the category of movies like Hereditary. And once we did the short, like, that question went away and people understood the style of the movie.
Yes, I mean, it's a definitely fun movie. But by the way, get over to Shudder and see it. It's a fun psychological horror movie, and
I should also add that if people don't have a Shudder subscription, which I highly encourage that you do, because it's not just for SLAPFACE. There are many great films on Shudder and many classic horror films and so on. But it's also on Amazon Prime and Roku and YouTube. It's not, if you Google SLAPFACE film, it's like has that list of like places that you can see it. So it's all over the place. Most people have Amazon Prime and can see it that way.
Yes, definitely check it out. Now, you also sent a screener over to your new film, which is the GEECHEE Witch.
The GEECHEE Witch.
Yes, and this one it's an interesting concept. I mean, so tell us a little bit about the GEECHEE Witch.
Absolutely. Well, so the GEECHEE Witch came to me through producers that I met 10 years ago, named Phoenix Higgins and J. Craig Gordon and Jason W. Short. I used to be an assistant director, and I assistant directed a few projects for those guys, and then they were following my career. And then when SLAPFACE was doing well, they sent me the script. They were like, "Hey, Jeremiah, remember us from so long ago?" It was one of those things where the business has a long memory, and people who like working with you because you're not a jerk. Yes. If you're a nice person and they believe in your talent, then the phone will ring sometimes. It'll be people from long ago, and they were like, "Hey, we have a feature called the GEECHEE Witch." And it's set in the Low Country of Georgia. The Gullah Geechee community they're descendants of West and Central African descent. They were brought over as slaves to America, and their island community. They were, they worked on indigo plantations and cotton plantations, but they retained their very, very specific culture and their own patois and their own food and their own language, and indeed their own folk horror, in the form of the GEECHEE Witch, also known as the Boo Hag. The GEECHEE Witch, she comes at you at night and steals your soul. She basically is a sleep demon who sucks all the life out of you the way a vampire sucks blood. And ultimately, she seeks to pervade inside of you and get inside your very skin and inhabit you, much the way that John Carpenter's The Thing imitates, the people in the Antarctic. She seeks to inhabit your skin because if she's exposed to the daylight, she burns. So there are many aspects of the vampire legend to this creature, while at the same time not being Central European or Transylvanian, but of very strong African descent and very strong Low Country, Georgia, South Carolina descent from this community. And our story follows, thankfully for me, because I'm from New York, it follows an artist from New York who is not from that community at all, named Leah, whose husband Asa is going back to his home. His father is moving away, his mother has died, and it's like, all right, we're going to rebuild our lives down here, as it turns out, in this big former plantation house. So there's this generational wealth in their family, but their family is cursed. The curse of the GEECHEE Witch is upon them, as with so many people in the GEECHEE community. And indeed, the writer J. Craig Gordon is from that community, and as a child was haunted by the witch himself. If you hear him tell it, he was, in many of the same ways that SLAPFACE was really about where I grew up in rural, poverty-ridden Rhode Island. J. Craig was writing about the islands that he grew up on and the people he grew up with and the wealth that he inherited, and indeed the monster of his past. It was a very personal story for him. So the question I had for those guys was, you're all of that world. Why do you want this white guy from the North to tell your story of a very specific Black culture from the South? And they were like, well, the thing is, we love horror movies, and we feel very strongly about how you approach character and how you approach monsters and how you approach the sense of mystery. And because you're not from here, you'll be able to look at it in a fresh light. And any of the cultural nuances that you don't understand or will get wrong, we won't let you. They had a lot of people around me from the community, historians, Sally Ann Robinson is a cultural historian from like who lives there, you know, and she was with us on the island, introducing us to the Gullah Geechee community. Yeah, we had a dialect coach to make sure that the actors got it right. He's in the movie. He plays Dr. Buzzard. He has a little cameo, but you know, like a lot of people were helping me. Like J. Craig Gordon was by the monitor with me every day to make sure that I didn't miss any of the of the very specific nuances of his culture, and I really appreciated that. I loved working with J. Craig. He was a great collaborator and a great friend. So you know, I approached it as an observer, really. You know, like on SLAPFACE, I was the writer and the director, so I considered myself the well. You know, I was drawing from memories of me growing up and being a lonely child in the woods, and in this, I was more of an observer. Like a lot of the crew from SLAPFACE came on and did the GEECHEE Witch as well, and we made ourselves, you know, the movie's not a documentary, and we're not documentary filmmakers, but we wanted to be sensitive and observational about the world that we were telling the story in. And as it just so happened, the ferocious monster at the heart of the movie, you know, was something that it's very easy to identify with those fears no matter what culture you come from. Like anybody who has had night terrors or sleep apnea or even frankly bad dreams, you know, can identify with the feeling of something pressing on you when you're asleep and spending your days worn out by a monster that you can't see.
I mean, it was pretty interesting what you said. So I watched the movie. I mean, the movie is predominantly black cast, and it's in the black culture. I was like, this is pretty interesting that a white guy is directing this movie.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
a black story. But I mean, now you telling me that, you know, you worked with people from the community, it makes more sense now.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, I think that, you know, it's if I didn't have that level of support that I could listen to, then I wouldn't have done the film. You know, like it would be wrong of me to go down there and make this film with the arrogance of believing that I understand this culture. I mean, as much research as I did, it was like, it's not like I grew up there. You know, it's not like, you know, so that was vital to the movie and to me, was that every day the people that were, you know, the Gullah Geechee people endorsed the film and were present in the film. You know, like one of my favorite days of filming was with this group. Like there's a funeral scene pretty early on in the movie, and there are these women all in white who are doing this ceremony. And, you know, we didn't direct that bit at all. You know, Dominic and I asked them to show us what they would do, you know, and they did. And we were like, great, we'll film that, you know, and we covered it, you know, like on the outside of their circle, you know, and they were wonderful. They wanted to be in the movie. They were absolutely delighted, but it wasn't us imposing a vision on them. It was more us seeing what they brought to the film and then trying to capture it. And the entire funeral sequence was in that way, where we had a minister there who told us how it would go down, you know, and so in those ways, like I felt like it was a great learning experience for me. You know, I could bring my love of horror to that story, but the culture entirely came from the world that we were visiting.
And once again, this is another movie that's beautifully shot.
Thank you.
Now, there is a unique, I don't know if it's a filter or what, that's on the actual movie itself. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, filming in Georgia, you know, like up in the north, you know, you get like, you know, maybe 3 hours of what we call magic hour, which is dusk, you know, like the light hits everything beautifully at a certain time of day. And in Georgia, the light hits everything somewhere beautifully at some point during the day. You know, like it's got this wonderful quality of as a haunted place. Yeah, and I think the quality of the light is also mysterious and magical and strange and unique. So, you know, it was like, first of all, go to Georgia and point the camera in any direction, and you're going to get something really, truly magical and special and beautiful. I'm not alone in thinking that. The house that we shot in was also in Halloween Ends, you know, at the very beginning of the movie, in the prologue. You know, I mean, it's no surprise that other people want to shoot in Georgia. Second thing is, hire a great director of photography. Dominic Savilli, as I've been talking about him throughout this entire interview because he's such a dear collaborator. We talk a lot. We've gotten to the point where we don't even need to talk that much anymore. About like the look and style of the movies because we both love widescreen. We both have the same taste in color grading. Like SLAPFACE and GEECHEE Witch were both color graded by a guy named Brian Woos, who's a brilliant colorist. Like he has his own theories about like what makes good color grading. And one of his theories is that he wants movies to look like old paper,
Mm-hmm.
and so it gives a gradation on the movie that makes it feel that combination of like magical light and artificial light created by Dominic, and the particular spirit of Georgia and the anamorphic lenses and the color grading by Brian, which is paper-like, old paper-like. All these things create an effect that like where you described it as layers or something. It's like it is that thing where it's like it's kind of like cooking with ingredients. You want to bring them all together. I care deeply about making the colors pop in a certain way. So SLAPFACE was meant to be autumn. There's a lot of browns and oranges. It's like Halloween colors. And the GEECHEE Witch, we, like being down south, it's like we just wanted to capture that feeling of heat, that feeling of like sun hitting those trees and moonlight hitting the magnolia, and all of our choices were informed, all of our color choices were informed by the location. It was all informed by that very haunted quality of Savannah and of the South. So when you look at movies like, Night of the Hunter, that's a black and white movie, but it has that Southern Gothic quality. And we're like, all right, we're going to bring Southern Gothic into this low country and mix those things together and see what emerges. And that's how we got the look of the GEECHEE Witch, which is something we're extremely proud of. The atmosphere of that film was extremely important to me and Dom. So I'm glad that you bring it up.
Yes, one thing I noticed, I was like, wow. Actually, in both the movies, I mean, it's just the colors are vibrant and the shades. And it was, listen, I'm not a cinematographer, but like as a movie fan, I'm like, wow, these are just beautiful movies. And it adds to the all-around environment and the eeriness of what's happening in these stories.
Yeah, Dom and I are big fans of Dean Cundy, who shot for John Carpenter. It's like Halloween has that autumn feel, and The Thing, feels Arctic and blue. It's like a lot of attention is paid to the storytelling and the widescreen that John Carpenter does, but his use of color is pretty dynamic. And Dean Cundy, we love Jurassic Park, and in both SLAPFACE and GEECHEE Witch, we both had shots where we're like, this is the Jurassic Park shot, like when Leah sees the plantation house for the first time, we do a big push in on her and it's like, welcome to Jurassic Park, we said. And then in SLAPFACE, the bullies are messing with the kid and they hear a scream out in the monster bellow out in the woods, and we do the sweep in on them, welcome to Jurassic Park. So that's direct, all the color stuff and the camera work and stuff like that. We tilt our hat to the great Dean Cundy, who shot so many brilliant films for Spielberg and Zemeckis and John Carpenter. His use of color and his use of widescreen is something that we greatly admire, and his use of camera movement to tell the story. We should say every single time, special thanks to Dean Cundy for making us better filmmakers.
Good job, Dean. Now, when is this going to be released on streaming service?
We're negotiating our streaming deal right now. I can't give too much away, but I can say, they've been talking about a May or June release with a distributor that you've heard of. So we will be making that announcement soon. If people want to follow the GEECHEE Witch in particular, I know for sure that it's on Facebook and Instagram. It's like if you look up GEECHEE Witch movie, like that's the best way to follow the life of GEECHEE Witch. We had a week-long run at Regal Cinemas all around the country, which was really special. I've never had a theatrical release before, so that was really meaningful. And from there, we've been brokering our streaming deal, but no ink has been signed yet, so I'm not allowed to say who we're talking to. But if people go to Instagram and Facebook, there's also a link to the website on there. There are ways that people can follow the life of the movie, and we'll also be making announcements in the next month or so.
Sweet. Yeah, Jeremiah, how can everyone find you?
I am very active on Facebook and Instagram myself, and there aren't very many Jeremiah Kipps. So, if they type my name into Facebook or Instagram, they will find me. Follow me. I'm an avid movie fan, so I post a lot of things about movies and actors that I love. I like to have discussions going about movies that I haven't seen. I'm curious about what people are into. I like promoting other filmmakers. So yeah, follow me, and started a dialogue. I'm a big movie fan like you, and I care a lot about it. So yeah, I promote my own films on there, but I also have a larger discussion about movies in general.
All right, see, I got to follow you on Facebook too, and
please do.
Yes, I have to definitely do that. Listen, everyone, go to Shudder, Amazon, any streaming service, and look up SLAPFACE. Check it out. It's a fun ride. If you're a horror fan, say if you like Hereditary, Midsummer, anything like that, if you like those beautiful contrasts of colors, and you like an eerie story, SLAPFACE is there. And GEECHEE Witch, fucking amazing. I don't know when it's gonna come out, May, June, whenever. But listen, look out for that and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Jeremiah. By the way, let's say a shout out to Ryan Kelly for hooking up this interview.
Ryan Kelly, another great filmmaker who I deeply admire.
Yeah, so let us thank Ryan. Thank you. Thank you. Jeremiah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, man. Listen, you're more than welcome anytime.
I really appreciate it. Your questions were great. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. It's no problem. This is why I'm the best at this, man. I'm joking.
You sure are.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.